Have you ever noticed that the deeper someone plunges into self-improvement, the more their internal anxiety seems to grow? Today's cultural landscape is saturated with beautifully packaged slogans. We are constantly told to silence our minds, radiate nothing but high vibrations, and manifest success around the clock. But what if beneath these glossy, spiritual cliches lie subtle psychological traps? What if some of the most popular pieces of spiritual advice actually hinder your progress, quietly overwhelming your psyche, detaching you from reality, and blocking your true spiritual potential? Today, we will break down 6 of these common, yet deeply flawed pieces of advice, peel back the layers of these concepts, and examine how these mechanisms operate beneath the surface. 1. You must avoid low vibrations at all costs. The grain of truth. There's a valid reason behind the urge to protect our energetic state. In metaphysics, maintaining a clean internal space and refusing to feed destructive, chaotic thoughts is essential. When we actively shield our consciousness from chronic negativity and focus on higher states like gratitude or peace, our perception shifts. We become far more receptive to intuitive insights, which is a natural and necessary vector of conscious evolution. The distortion and danger. The harm begins when this principle is turned into a strict ban on natural human emotions. Attempting to artificially lock oneself into a state of perpetual bliss ignores the very laws of the physical, material world we are embodied in. Fear, anger, or grief are labeled as dangerous low vibrations that supposedly attract misfortune. Consequently, people begin to suppress their authentic feelings, pushing them deep into the unconscious and feeding a massive, uncontrollable shadow that erodes the psyche from within. A new perspective. This dense material world inherently operates on a lower frequency, and these are the exact, necessary conditions for the evolution of the spirit. Fear and pain are not system failures. They're internal compass points that demand our attention and integration. True maturity is not about fleeing from low vibrations, but about the capacity to hold space for the full spectrum of the human experience, remaining centered and preserving internal silence amidst any storm. 2. You must drop out of your head and live entirely from your heart space. The grain of truth. There's a seed of truth here. An overloaded logical apparatus inevitably leads to analysis paralysis. When the ego maintains rigid hypercontrol, constant internal chatter drowns out intuition and blocks the raw perception of new experiences. To connect with the deeper layers of consciousness, the mind must indeed know how to fall quiet. The distortion and danger. The toxicity begins when a mind is declared an enemy or a prison. Forcing your thoughts to completely stop is a biological impossibility. The brain is naturally wired to generate thoughts just as the heart is wired to beat. When gurus command people to achieve a completely blank mind, it triggers a dangerous backfire effect. The violent suppression of thoughts creates a loop of internal judgment and frustration, making a person feel like they are bad at spirituality. This vilification of the intellect creates a destructive psychological split, a good spiritual heart versus a bad, thinking mind, leaving the psyche deeply fragmented and vulnerable to external suggestion. A new perspective. The goal of true practice is not a forced shutdown switch, but de-identification. You don't need to violently stop the machine. You just need to realize that you are the space in which the thoughts happen, not the thoughts themselves. The mind is not a flaw in the system. It is a precision tool. True maturity means changing your relationship to it, using logic for structure and intuition for direction, allowing internal chatter to quiet naturally without forceful suppression. 3. You can manifest absolutely anything if your alignment is right. The grain of truth. The idea that our focus shapes our reality is well-founded. When consciousness holds a clear vector toward a goal, the entire psychological system acts as a homing beacon. We unconsciously filter our environment, picking out opportunities, events, and connections that resonate with our internal request. Intention genuinely structures chaos, the distortion and danger. Toxicity creeps in when manifestation is reduced to an egocentric tool of control, suggesting the universe is merely a drive-through window for our desires. This breeds a painful trap. If plans fall through or a crisis hits, a person plummets into immense guilt, believing they simply thought wrong. But reality is an immensely complex supersystem where billions of individual wills, physical laws, and the evolutionary path of our own soul intersect. A new perspective. True metaphysics is about co-creation and synergy, not bending the cosmos to serve the ego. If a powerful intention does not materialize, it is rarely a failure of technique. Often, it is a wise psychological safeguard. Sometimes, what the ego desperately chases directly contradicts the long-term evolution of the personality. 4. Look for signs and hidden meanings in everything. The grain of truth. The world around us is nonlinear, and remarkable rhymes occasionally occur between our internal states and external events. Reality can reflect our deep-seated psychological processes, and learning to notice these subtle synchronicities is a significant part of exploring exceptional human experiences. The distortion and danger. This becomes problematic when the search turns into a hyperfixation. The human brain is naturally wired to project internal expectations onto random coincidences, finding patterns where none exist. Seeing coded messages in every stranger's glance or repeating clock digit leads to a total paralysis of agency. A person stops making independent choices, outsourcing their life to external cues while waiting for a green light from above. A new perspective. We must separate the frantic hunting for meaning from genuine Jungian synchronicity. An authentic metaphysical sign requires no forced excavation. It presents itself as an effortless, profound emotional resonance between an objective event and your internal readiness. Space speaks to us, but only when there is an evolutionary necessity for it, not because we try to turn every step into a cosmic riddle. 5. You have one specific life purpose you must find. The grain of truth. This concept rests on a fundamental metaphysical truth. Every individual enters this world with a unique blueprint of innate qualities, inclinations, and talents. Our internal compass, our passion and vivid curiosity towards certain subjects, serves as a vital marker of our potential that should never be ignored. The distortion and danger. The harm sets in when this potential is frozen into a rigid, singular script. The narrative that a specific, predetermined cosmic role is written out for you breeds two dangerous extremes. For some, it causes total paralysis. They become terrified to take action or launch projects, frozen by the fear of making the wrong choice. They get stuck analyzing their life instead of living it. They are waiting for a guarantee from the universe that they won't fail, labeling this fear of failure as waiting for divine timing. For others, it triggers a toxic loop of endless hopping. They abandon careers, switch fields, or drop initiatives at the first sign of friction or boredom, convinced that it must not be my true calling. Either way, it turns people into perpetual seekers, forever running from real commitment, because they are waiting for an external instruction manual to guarantee effortless success. A new perspective. Our potential is not a static artifact waiting to be dug up intact. It is a living seed. While the inclinations are built in, how that seed grows depends entirely on your creativity and free will. A life purpose is not a riddle to be solved, but a dynamic process of authorship. We create it in real time through our active choices, and in the process of trying things, making mistakes, and building skills, a sense of purpose naturally emerges. 6. You must reach a state of flawless self-love before you are ready for a partner. The grain of truth. Cultivating internal harmony and self-respect is undeniably important. When we have a grounded sense of self-worth, we establish healthy boundaries and stop looking for a partner to simply fill an inner void or save us from ourselves. Inner alignment fundamentally elevates the quality of connections we draw into our lives. The distortion and danger. The toxicity begins when this is turned into an absolute rule. The idea that you must reach a state of flawless self-love before you are ready for a partner. This implies that love is a reward reserved only for perfectly healed people. It causes individuals to hyperfixate on their perceived energetic or spiritual flaws, trapping them in endless self-optimization. A person starts thinking, I must still have unhealed karmic blocks, which is why I'm single. This completely ignores the fact that human beings are wired for co-regulation. The nervous system's natural ability to find safety, healing, and balance through connection with another soul. We often learn how to love ourselves precisely through the experience of being loved by someone else. A new perspective. A period of being single is not a spiritual failure or a sign that you are broken. You do not need to be a finished spiritual masterpiece to be worthy of a relationship. Often, the external circuit closes simply because your energy is temporarily mobilized for a different, foundational process of personal evolution. But when it comes to connection, remember, you don't have to be perfectly healed to love and be loved. True spiritual evolution has very little to do with chasing a flawless image or attempting to make reality cater to the ego. It is a path of mental sobriety, honoring your personal resources and deeply trusting the natural processes of your own psyche. The greatest trap of modern self-improvement is the belief that you must fix yourself before you are allowed to truly live. But alignment is not a destination where you suddenly become a finished, sterile masterpiece. It is the capacity to stay present within your own human experience, with all its friction, unanswered questions, and raw potential. When you stop fighting the reality of who you are right now, the baseline anxiety drops, and the internal clarity you've been chasing naturally reveals itself. And perhaps that is where the true journey begins.